Uh, Hello, this is Branko Malic of Tribune. Today podcast will start with a quote. Here goes the quote. Along with the creed in scarcity goes, of course, the faith in the ravages of overpopulation. Nowadays a stance that is conveniently mistaken for environmental concern. In our discussion of Foucault, we had already arraigned Malthusianism as the trademark of the ugliest form of oligarchism and conservatism. For the chief reason behind its perennial adoption in the face of constant refutation is, of course, its claim that poverty, war, and disease are not the responsibility of man, but of the putative, vicious laws of nature. It suggests that there just is not enough bread for all mouths, hence the struggle. Aldous Huxley created his famous dystopian novel, Brave New World, upon such an oligarchic hypothesis. Thus, for Ernest Jünger, Malthus and Huxley were intelligent Englishmen. Unquote. This quote comes from the book Ideology of Tyranny, the Use of Neo-Gnostic Myth in American Politics by American-Italian or Italian-American, whichever you prefer, Guido Preparata. This book is an exceptional piece of work, I would say, and in the future I will try to provide a detailed review of this book on Kali Tribune, but now we'll just use it as a starting point for a short discussion about the idea of overpopulation and idea of political correctness, which we dissect every once in a while. What makes Preparata unique, especially when it comes to his criticism of political correctness as well as the what we call postmodern academic discipline or postmodern philosophy, postmodern education. He's a man of the left. He's not a cookie cutter leftist. He's pretty much old-fashioned Italian leftist, although he was born in USA, but he has this Italian leftist vibe, which is something rather different than, for instance, American leftist vibe. And he's a Catholic, among other things, which is not something you really cannot put together, especially in Italy. But that doesn't matter. What matters is, this is the critique of political correctness and essence of political correctness from the left, and it is devastating. One thing I always try to avoid was to flatly pin postmodernism and political correctness on the left. I'm not leftist myself, but I always felt that people who, and they are overwhelming majority, who simply pin political correctness to the left, political left, are completely wrong. Because if any political option has been disrupted and destroyed by political correctness, it is the left. Preparata here in this passage is in fact talking about Ernest Jünger. Ernest Jünger is, for those who don't know, one of the prime literary figures of what was called the German Conservative Revolution, so he's hardly a leftist. But as you probably noticed, there is a mention of Foucault, because chapter before Jünger, Preparata was talking about Michel Foucault as a man who introduced postmodernity and groundwork for the ideology of political correctness in the USA. And what he tries to show in his book is that this there is a specific metaphysics and a specific quasi-religious stance, the common core between left and right in a postmodern so-called time, what they call postmodernity, in the dissolution of modernity. And it cuts through people like Michel Foucault, Lyotard, I don't know, Jacques Derrida on the one hand. On the other hand, through people like Jünger, Heidegger, and nowadays I would add Alexander Dugin, who is a very good example of this phenomena. That is to say, of transcending left and right, not by going above them, but below them, going in the mud, metaphysical mud of matter. And this metaphysical mud of matter is something that Guido Preparata claims discovered by a French, not so well-known French so-called philosopher, Georges Bataille. And I won't go too deep into this, but Bataille, as Guido noticed, among other things, believed in overpopulation. What is one of these common core ideas, metaphysical principles that all those people share? Postmodernist is this idea of overpopulation, and I was always darkly fascinating with this because I was looking at the problem of this idea of overpopulation in the context of system of sustainable development, as everybody following Kali Tribune surely knows, because I spend a lot of time in dissecting various UN documents, as for instance famous Agenda 21, but there are far more radical documents like Common Future that is preceded Agenda 21 by a few years, and which made groundwork. Agenda 21 was an operationalization of this first document. And I noticed that this overpopulation dogma is only thing that will never change when sustainable development is concerned. They are obsessed with this to this day. Neo-Malthusians from UN. What I didn't understand is why is this, because this is not an empirical thing. I won't go too much into why, but notice that, for instance, the last UN Agenda 2030, from 2015, I think it was presented on the 17th anniversary of UN, founding of UN. It advocates this, for instance, education as a mean of making a smaller family and reproductive, what they call reproductive rights. For them, your reproductive right is a right not to have children, because as anybody who was following this analysis of these documents on Kali Tribune knows, when sustainable development freaks want to take something from you, they give you a right, and the right is in fact a mean to drag you in one system of rules and laws that will in fact deprive you of some of elementary human rights. But we won't go into that now. What was interesting to me is why are they adamant about that? And Guido, I think, hit the nail in the head in this book, and this is something he treats only cursorily in few places. But he noticed in Georges Bataille, Georges Bataille uses this notion of overpopulation and decreasing population as something central and something very appealing to him, and he locates it in a most clear sense in Aztec civilization and their habit of sacrificing thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of people in some way in a religious sacral ceremonies that were supposedly done to appease the sun god. What Bataille notices in this, he looks at this like a we might call political economy, believe it or not, because in his view, the Aztecs a need to sacrifice or to eviscerate, to disembowel, to cut out the hearts of thousands of people was not because they were afraid that sun will stop shining. Because they knew, so Bataille says, that the energy of sun is eternal. It is eternal, ceaseless emanation of energy as life, because Bataille looks at life as a surge, irrational surge of brutality, of bloodletting, of uninhibited egoism, and so on and so forth. And he wants to see this original, this core, this original being of man being reintroduced subversively into the quote-unquote bourgeois liberal world, which supposedly lost touch with the real nature. And this is some kind of, as Guido Preparata interprets it, this is an attempt to institutionalize through subversion a Dionysian religion, or religion of carnal ecstasy. And the main aim of this is to destroy any notion of compassion, goodness, and justice. And the first, of course, the first condition for this is destruction of Christianity. But after Christianity, all those systems of thought, other things that try to found their respective teachings on these moral principles, that's a long story. Of course, that's something we'll go in depth in the forthcoming review. But here it is important to note that for Bataille, the sacrifice was excess of surplus energy, surplus value. It is a spending, it is like a rich man spending money. Because Bataille, so says Preparata, notices one thing. If you want to understand the economy of society and politics of society, you don't look so much at means of acquiring wealth, but on ways the wealth is spent. And Bataille was in favor of completely anarchic, overabundant spending, burning money, spending it on orgies, on such things, making explosion of energy, because that's all that interests him. This unbridled life understood as a surge of chthonic underground brutality. And he was fascinated with Aztecs because Aztecs did that. They didn't need, that's how he theoretizes. They never really felt the need to appease the sun god. They felt the need to imitate him in a way, they reach the apex of life through human sacrifice, because they affirmed life. They affirmed life in the most sacral and most natural way. So beautiful, isn't it? And I think, and this Preparata notices that this is very similar to this myth of overpopulation, and this myth comes very close, is ever present throughout the left and right, because thesis of Preparata is that Bataille's work decidedly influenced Michel Foucault, who bring it in America, and in America his work became the foundation, Foucault's work became foundation of academic lingo, of these cultural studies, and eventually political correctness. And I think that he makes very good case about this. The term cultural Marxism applied usually to political correctness is, in my opinion,
not very good, because it implies that the real culprits are only these Frankfurt School people. I think the reason for this, yeah, I don't like Frankfurt School one bit, but I think the reason for this is that this attack on political correctness, centering on Frankfurt School, comes from the right and pro-Nazi right, and they want to, they are concentrating on Frankfurters because they were predominantly Jewish. There is a lot of merit in criticizing them, but to put political correctness and especially this irrationality straight at their door is not really consequent, I think. The Foucauldians and these post-structuralist, French postmodernists are much more probably to blame to the advent of political correctness. And these are some things that they have all have in common, on the left and the right. This mental state in which you have a need to destroy, to go on the unbridled spending, overabundance of your material wealth on nothing, practically, on indulging yourself, on making the whole nation indulge itself in orgies, for instance, or something like that. And on the left, it is manifested in this need for a transgression, because what came with postmodernism was that the traditional aims of the left, such as this social justice in the primarily economic sense, were let go in favor of transgressing the limits, which materialized in these gay rights, then gay black rights, then gay black one-legged rights, then one-eyed, one-legged black gay rights, and so on and so forth, because it dissolutes into nothingness finally, because this multiplication of designated victim groups who has to have special, to be given opportunity to manifest their power from the margin to subvert the system and so on, and those language games and so forth. I talk a lot about it, that is about political correctness, wouldn't want to repeat myself. What is unique is that overpopulation, they take it as a fact also, because when you take this sustainable development doctrine, it is completely in accord with postmodern academia, and is using postmodern academic lingo, and people who push it, for instance, on the grassroots, not grassroots, but foot soldiers level of NGOs, completely use this postmodern politically correct lingo. They have no problem in imagining that the world population should be radically cut. On the other hand, on the right, we have also this idea which is closely related and congenial to oligarchy and to conservatism of oligarchy, to wish of oligarchy to nothing to ever be changed. Because idea is that coming from idea held, for instance, by Bataille and later by Foucault, Jünger, Leo Strauss, Heidegger, and such people, is that the principle of everything, the being of beings, is chaos, in fact, matter, complete, amorphous, unbridled surge of matter, of blind overabundance of something that cannot be subjected to any kind of laws or moral norms and so on and so forth. and they are interesting. They don't want to see any notion that this could be in some way changed. For instance, that there are some, for instance, transcendent principle of justice, or for instance, that poverty can be indeed alleviated or even annihilated in some instances. I don't know if you noticed, leftists, I know a lot of leftists, and some of the worst people I know are leftists, which does not prevent them to advocate the loftiest ideals of the care for the poor and for the workers. For instance, the workers are their mantra. Now, what is interesting here, a long time ago I noticed they don't give a fuck about workers as a concrete human beings, and as a rule most of them never met a living specimen of a worker, and never did any real work probably in their lives. What is interesting is that they use a worker as a metaphysical principle, because worker is at the very bottom of their understanding of the world. If it is not worker, it's gay, homosexual, it's black, it's I don't know, cripple, impaired, invalid man. Anyway, anybody who can be stripped of everything save his naked material life. That's why they want the worker. And what Guido noticed in this brand of so-called left, but this transcends left and right, they make these designated victim groups, these networks of, as Foucault would call them, this knowledge power nodes that transgress this, that are outside of the mainstream, outside of the system, and that should be supported in their subversion for no reason at all, because everything is happening and coming to pass without reason. Those people don't want the condition of those designated victim groups to improve. They want to multiply these groups. And these groups have to fight, have to struggle among each other, although this struggle is mostly in the sphere of language, in discourse, as they call it, because those are not real physical wars. But on the other hand, you have a right reading of this, which is tied, for instance, Preparata ties it to American neoconservatives, among other people, with Leo Strauss and similar people, that are complete warmongers, that are looking at this, let's say, spending of life's energy in this meaningless way as the best, as the aristocratic way to go, because there is no meaning. You have to construct such a society where you have these gnostics, which are pneumaticoi, which are endowed with a higher cognition of the higher knowledge of the essence of world as practically chaos, and the multitudes who are, of course, blinded. And they have to, the rulers are the reason why everything moves, and they need war, they need to renew their life's energy, to move this wheel of eternal brutality, suffering, surging of energy. And this is something they all share. And I find it very interesting that the myth of overpopulation, no matter how, in what terms it is expressed, always points to such mentality. And by mentality, I think I understand the relation human mind takes towards metaphysical principles. So mentality is not some kind of taste, what kind of music you like or something. No, this is much deeper. This is where what your mind is being set on, and their mind is set on destruction. And this cuts through left and right. And I think that Guido Preparata was pretty good at demonstrating this. And I hope in the future that I'll find time among other, in between other projects, to do a detailed review of his book, because it is really it is very good read, and it demonstrates aptly that political correctness is not really a phenomena of the left. Thank you for your attention. This was Branko Malic of Kali Tribune.